them guests. And you have some that, man, you really do appreciate when somebody hangs around and helps clean up and help pick up. Or if you got a big expenditure, you don't say anything, but you ain't going to ask anybody. But if somebody gave you some money, especially on crawfish boil, man, if somebody contributes for that, because, there's always going to be those that shows up and don't. There's always those, and you don't say anything. You don't think less of them for that because they're guests. But at the same time, Carrie, isn't it nice when somebody picks up or contributes, or, to me that just goes a little bit deeper. And so what I do is, like, when I go over there, I always bring something. So I took and I gave them the money, and they appreciate it because they never asked for anything. They never asked for anything. So I was sitting there, and a good friend of mine, he's down from Michigan. He is an executive for Tocsin. Tocsin bought a medical plant or medical device manufacturing plant in Michigan, and Richard was running the plant for them. He didn't know anything about medical, but he didn't have to. He had an understanding, David, of how to run a plant. Running a plant is running a plant. AJ doesn't need to know anything. If he knows how to manage a restaurant, he can manage a restaurant. It can be a Taco Bueno, or it can be a Taco Bell, or it can be a Burger King, or it can be a McDonald's. You understand. All you have to understand is the little differences or the nuances. So the thing is that while we was there, Richard and I, we've all talked about it. We've all beat this dog to death. We've all had this feeling that we was missing something, that something wasn't connecting, that there wasn't dots being joined. We always do something, but we didn't know why we do it. To know why you do a thing, to me, reinforces doing the thing. There's nothing worse than, I always just do it. Well, why? I don't know. Just do it. Well, why do you do a thing? There's nothing worse, David, than doing something and it feeling useless to you. That you're just wasting your time. Heck, if this is all there is, I can waste my time at home. There has to be something more to what you're doing. So Richard and I was talking about it, and again, he's a very well-educated man. And he was talking to me. He said, well, Monty, he says, I really, really, really miss your teachings that you used to do on esoterica and blah, blah, blah. And he says, because you have a different way of looking at things. And he says, when I came to Freemasonry, he says, I was looking for philosophy and understanding of philosophy, thinking that that's what it's going to be about. People are going to talk about philosophy. And he says, nobody talks about philosophy. He says, so I become, I guess disenchanted with it. And he says, so he walked away. And he got talking about Christianity and his disconnect with Christianity. And so he and I have been talking back and forth, and when we got talking about it, and it's so funny, his wife is one of those that remind me, y'all heard a story about my sister Joyce. They said, well, Joyce, are you Christian? She says, no, I'm Baptist. It's kind of funny, but in reality, that's how it is. And so his wife was like that. So, naturally, when I opened my big fat mouth, she got talking about, well, there's certain things we should do, and these things. And we got off into the once saved, always saved theology. And I told her, I said, I don't believe in it. I don't believe in it. Richard had a very valid point. He said, so at what point are you actually saved? I said, well, first thing, let's look at the definition of saved. Well, I got saved from judgment. Well, have you died yet? Have you faced judgment? Well, no, then you're not saved. If you're in a house and if it's not on fire, somebody rushes into your house, wakes you up from your bed, say, hey, look, you may have a fire, let's get you out of here. What do you mean, I may have a fire? Well, I'm trying to save you from what? You understand my point? That you can't be saved unless you're actually in a fire. If you have a house fire, somebody pulls you out of your house fire, what are you doing? So the thing is that saved is the end result. But walking in salvation, walking in the fullness of the relationship with God through Yeshua, now we're changing what we're saying. And so we went on to it, and we was talking about a lot of different things, and he had a lot of questions. And one of the things we talked about was our church, and he wants to come visit our church. He says, Bonnie, he said, your church sounds like a place that I want to be at. I said, well, I appreciate that. But I had made a comment about how little, I said, yeah, I said, we're not like a lot of churches. I said, as an example, I said, we don't collect tithes. The minute I said that, I had this resonation in my mind. I was like, uh-oh, here it goes. The next morning, I was reading Malachi because it was something that I wanted to discuss last week. And all of a sudden, I read the end of it. I'm like, oh no. Now I see the importance of why we should tithe. Because I have admitted that. And the problem is that one of my roles, AJ and I do a lot of talking about our roles. What are our roles as a Christian? Do we have responsibilities as church leadership? Yes, you have responsibilities as church leadership. You know, the thing is that, Artie, you had a very valid point, and your point was how the priests were basically screwing up. And that's what you realize.
I jumped ahead.
But again, you're at the very good point, because realize that Malachi is the end of a story. It's the last book, and it's the changing over from the Old Testament to the New Testament. But as well, it does talk about what's going on with the priest. Why the priests are having this problem. Why the priests are having that problem. Well, in reality, Malachi is a mirror with which we look at ourselves. We are the priesthood. We are, he says, know ye not that you are a royal priesthood? We come from a royal line. That is our line. That is our heritage. So we have roles and responsibilities as priests. We have roles and responsibilities. And so it dawned on me that I was neglecting that responsibility because I didn't want to get into this label thing of tithing. I was talking to AJ, we was talking about our church growing and the necessity of our church growing. And it's painful to think about we need to grow. But you should consider it like this. We have to, within this year, probably before the winter, be ready to position ourselves to put a roof on by this winter. Have to. We got water leaks. The thing is that when you see a tile coming down or something like that, it's water leak. That's what that is. And so we have that we've got to consider doing. Well, if there was 4 of us in here, the price of a roof would be how much? Well, now if you consider from this aspect, if we don't have rent, we don't have anything, we have utilities and we have insurance, and so, but the other side of it is that if we don't have the money to maintain this, what do you think is going to happen in this church? If you don't have money to maintain your car, what's going to happen to it? It's going to fall apart. It's eventually going to give you problems. So, when I was reading this, and then it dawned on me, because again, I didn't want to be labeled as one of them tithing preachers. But on the other side of it is that it's much like if I don't tell you and remind you that it's a sin to do this or it's a sin to do that, then am I not by extension becoming what is normally common with preachers? That we avoid the topic of sin because you don't want to hear that you're sinning, so I want to tell you what you want to hear. But in reality, sometimes we need to be reminded, don't we, Amber, that we do something wrong. That we need to be reminded that this is a sin, that this is a wrong thing in our life. Sometimes we need these checks. We need these things that pulls us back. Y'all heard me tell you that a friend of mine was talking about God. He said, well, I don't understand why. I said, well, the thing is, I said, you need a God that disagrees with you. Because if your God agrees with you, I'm going to tell you right now, it ain't God. A God that disagrees with you is a God who is disciplining you, saying, wait a second, Erica, this is not right. You need that. We have to have that, because if we have something that's constantly saying, oh, that's okay, you can do this, you can do this, you can do this, that's not God. And it's not that God is sitting there telling us everything that we do wrong. God, that's not the nature of God. But on the other side, if we don't have something that reminds us, but yet we don't talk about tithe in a role or a responsibility. All right, so somebody go to Romans 12:1. And somebody tell me what that says.